Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another video game hunting here on Player One Start. The Wii U game hunting never ends here on this channel, as I am still looking for about 5 or 6 titles that are eluding me from having a complete collection. Right next to that though, it caught my eye that there was this Darth Vader here. He's about 3.5–4 feet tall, which actually made him look a little bit humorous to me, but still could have been something cool to pick up. However, moving past the mystery bags, I don't know why anyone would buy things that they don't know what's inside of it, but anyway, moving past those and going to the Sega Genesis case, I was actually at this time still looking for some Genesis titles for the Ultimate Sega Genesis review, which as of the posting of this video is mostly complete. Still, that 6-pack cartridge there, showing a whole bunch of games from the early life of the Sega Genesis, including the first Sonic the Hedgehog, did look interesting to me, as well as this Zero Tolerance cartridge. Zero Tolerance is like a Doom clone that was made specifically for the Sega Genesis, and I really felt that this would be a good game to include in that review. You know, a lot of people have asked me which system I feel like someone should start with if they're looking to collect retro games, and I usually try to ask the question about what era you grew up in. If you grew up in the 16-bit era, I would definitely recommend starting with the Sega Genesis. My main reasoning for that is that there are going to be a lot of titles that were iconic for the time period that appeared on the platform, and today, collecting for the Sega Genesis is actually one of the easier consoles to collect for, at least from that era. In my experience, I haven't found a problem finding any of these titles, or finding them for a decent price. There are a lot of quality titles for under $20 each. It's only when you start collecting for the Sega CD or the 32X that it becomes either prohibitively expensive, or not really worth it. But just going for the base system and the cartridges, I actually find it to be one of the most accessible consoles to collect in the retro gaming atmosphere. Even collecting titles that are complete in box aren't necessarily going to be always super expensive, as people saved the plastic clamshell cases from the Sega Genesis rather than throwing away mostly the cardboard ones that were come out for either the Nintendo Entertainment System or other systems that were out at the time. It's still hard for me to believe that people, even including myself, would have found these things to be disposable, but I guess I've learned from my mistakes as I usually keep all of my game cases now. Anyway, there are a few games that I found in here that I might pick up, but I'll have to take a look at what else I find before I come up with my final list of items. And in case you guys missed it, one of the contenders is this Castlevania Bloodlines that is complete in the box. A bit pricey, but may be worth it for me to grab. And almost to reiterate my point, there is a plethora of Sega Genesis titles out there, and they are one of the most widely available consoles I have collected for. It did take me quite a bit to go through this case, and after I finished recording footage, I actually had to go back and make a list of all the games that I wanted out of this case. I'll show you at the end which games I ended up getting. On just the other side of this case are the Sega Game Gear games. For those of you unaware of this system, the Sega Game Gear was Sega's handheld system that competed with the Game Boy in the beginning of the 1990s. And while the system was built to basically be a Sega Master System that was portable, unfortunately it took a little bit of a conversion process to get those games running on this platform. But even still, I found myself collecting more and more games for this system. I don't usually because I can't show these games on screen, or at least if I want to capture footage I have to use some sort of emulator. But I still like collecting for this console because the Sega Game Gear, if you can find it and get it running properly, actually still provides a good gaming experience, and in my opinion, a better gaming experience than on the Game Boy. And I think that's mainly because of the fact that it had a color backlit screen, rather than a screen that, well, depending on the time of day, you couldn't even play it. That is, on the Game Boy. But just like the Game Boy, there are a lot of titles out there for this system that are good to play, and all of these games seem to be pretty cheap. Don't get me wrong, there are some valuable titles out there, but you can find a lot of games that are still fun to play today, and it's amazing to me of how little technology they needed to provide a good gaming experience. I also like looking for some of the Game Boy Advance games that are around, again because mainly they are on the cheaper end, and these games at least provide a 16-bit gaming experience, or I should say 16-bit style, as technically I think the Game Boy Advance was a 32-bit system. But it provides that style of gameplay that I think a lot of people think of when they think of retro gaming. I should note that mainly the reason why I like collecting these is that these are the games of my youth. This is the style of the games of my youth, and I really enjoy playing them when I want to go back and play some retro games. I will note that I actually do have a PC Engine, and this is the game store where I bought that system. The games that you see on the shelf here were the games that were still available then, but unfortunately I didn't buy them, and I didn't really feel like these were titles that I wanted to pick up. Or, like in the case of Vigilante, I already have it for the TurboGrafx 16. Taking a scaled look back at this case, this actually has almost all of their games for the obscure systems. There's a Sega CD game, it looks like there is an Atari Jaguar game. Across the back you see some Neo Geo AES titles, and even a Neo Geo CD title, as well as a couple of Virtual Boy games off to the back. Again, I don't really have much interest in the games that are in this case, as I either already own them, or they are way too expensive for me to collect now, such as in the case of the Neo Geo titles. And right now, one of my other focuses is that I'm collecting for the TurboGrafx 16 in anticipation of the TurboGrafx 16 review, which, as of the posting of this video, is about ready to wrap up on this channel. If you haven't seen those, there should be a link popping up for you guys to watch those at the end of this video. I definitely recommend it. Moving on from that, we see some more SNK titles down there at the bottom for the Neo Geo. Those look like MVS titles though, as well as a whole bunch of Mattel and Television titles complete in the box. If I find any of these for $1, I will definitely grab them if they have the overlays, because again, I really like collecting these titles that are complete in box, as I've discovered with the Intellivision that you definitely need the directions for some of these games to understand how to play them. Looking past the Soul Calibur 5 Collector's Edition, there is a ton of handheld portable consoles here. 2DSs, 3DSs, and even some PlayStation Vitas. New since the last time I was in this store, there is a plethora of Super Famicom titles, as well as standard Famicom titles. I'm not quite sure who traded these in, but since I don't have the system yet, I think I'll have to hold out to see if they get the system in before I start collecting any of these. I can collect the Famicom titles though, as I do have an adapter to play them on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I've heard that the Super Famicom titles can be played in a regular North American Super Nintendo Entertainment System, but it does require modifying the cartridge port so that they'll actually fit into the slot. As far as I know, the cartridge shape was the only method of region locking they used on that system, unlike on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And speaking of the Nintendo Entertainment System, they do have a fresh stock of a whole bunch of games in this cabinet. It also took me quite a while to get through here as well. And again, going back to consoles that I recommend for people to collect for if they want to play some retro games, the Nintendo Entertainment System is one that, I will say, is still accessible, but it's not as accessible as it was in the past. The collectability of the Nintendo Entertainment System has caused the prices to go up, but I do feel that they are almost at a plateau, because there's only so much someone will pay for one of the junk sports titles on the Nintendo Entertainment System. At least games like Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3 here, those actually aren't priced too bad, and they are very good titles to get introduced to this system. I will say at this point, because I have collected for the Nintendo Entertainment System for such a long time, I actually don't see a single game in this case that I don't already own. At last count, I think I have about 460 unique titles, as well as a few duplicates for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I guess even though they have such a wide and varied selection here, that's the price I pay for collecting adamantly for this system for so many years. Thankfully, at the time I was collecting for this system, I was getting many of these titles for around 99 cents each. And although the pricing has gone up on these not too terribly, they actually match a system like the Sega Genesis at the moment. The only problem is, I feel that the Sega Genesis provides a better value for gaming, at least these days, as the Genesis definitely provides an opportunity for more value for your buck, as you're probably going to get more playtime out of those games than you would for these games. But again, I will definitely raise up the point again of how important it is to find out when you were born and what era you grew up in playing video games. Because in my case, I really feel more nostalgia for these games, as the Nintendo Entertainment System was the first system I remember playing back in the day. And it does form a bit of bias in the games that I collect for myself. One side I don't see too often in these retro game stores are complete in-box Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System, or even N64 games. Sadly, two reasons why I don't collect complete in-box titles of this era is that the fact that they are more rare, so they do drive up the price, and the fact that I just don't have the space for a lot of these. It's one of those things that are fun to look at on the shelf, but not really fun to collect for, at least in my opinion. I will note that the Super Nintendo Entertainment System appears, at least in this store, to have a wide variety of games to choose from, but if you look closely, a lot of them are sports titles. These are the titles that I really feel are plaguing in retro game stores at the moment, because there are a ton of these out there, and any game that is worth collecting is usually not in this case. If they are, they don't last very long. The N64 case really has the same story, unfortunately. There are some racing titles on here, but there aren't very many games that I would necessarily say are worth collecting. Don't get me wrong, I do have a lot of these games already for the N64, but those were collected at a time when it was much cheaper to do so. I really feel like the price of anything retro Nintendo has gone up and made it a bit less accessible for the casual retro game collector. Now here is something I don't see very often at all. In fact, this is the first time I've ever seen this in a retro game store. This is an Atari 520 ST home computer. It comes with a monitor, disk drive, and a whole bunch of games. But one thing you may notice is that it is missing one of the keys off of the keyboard, and they are asking around $450 for it. I did have them hook this up and try it out, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get the mouse to work with it either, so I ended up passing on this especially for the price. This computer actually did stay in this store for quite a few months, and I did frequently inquire as to whether or not they were going to lower the price on it or not, but unfortunately I think it's sold because one day I came in and it was just not the case anymore. So sadly I will not be reviewing this computer anytime soon. They also had a Commodore VIC-20 in the case right next to it that I did also pass on, as I already have a complete in-box Commodore VIC-20, which I got for about half the price they're asking for here. So out of everything I saw in this store, what did I end up getting? Well, I'll go ahead and head up to the cash register, make my purchases, and I will show you what I got. I did end up grabbing the complete in-box Dragon the Bruce Lee story, mostly because I don't find complete in-box Jaguar titles too often. In fact, it is a rare day when I find any Atari Jaguar title. As far as I know, this is a fighting game in the style of like what Mortal Kombat would have been back in the day, maybe a little less gory. The Jaguar version doesn't have as good of a rating as the Genesis or the Super Nintendo version, but those ratings aren't kind either. I guess I'll find out for myself when I start playing this game exactly what kind of game it is. But for now, I kind of want to unbox one of these Atari Jaguar titles. And first I see I can win some free game cartridges if I register my product. I can't imagine that would still be honored today. Taking everything out of the box, I can see the black and white manual sitting on top of the cartridge area. And unfortunately you can tell this has been opened before because the manual is a little bit flipped down in the front. The manual isn't particularly of high quality, as it is just black and white all the way throughout, but I guess it's more than games today give you, so I guess whatever. I do like that they give directions on what to use on the gamepad. Notice how they don't really use anything on the keypad, it's just using those buttons across the top. Surprisingly, despite its shape, this controller is actually kind of comfortable to hold in your hands. Unless you have to use the keypad down below, which I guess is why most games didn't use those. Oh, it actually is nice that this game actually has a memory save. I'll have to check and see if that's using a battery later on. Interestingly enough, this is actually making a note that if you have 100,000 changes saved, there will be no more changes retained after that. I wonder if I've reached that limit on this cartridge yet. But anyway, here's a close-up look at an Atari Jaguar cartridge itself. It does have one of those kind of relief notches across the top for you to pull the game cartridge in and out with, and I guess that's a cool design, but I would rather have had an end label to be able to tell what game this is when I stack it with a whole bunch of other games. Again, as this was cardboard, I probably would have thrown the box away back in the day. Of course I won't now, but that is still a thing I have to deal with cartridges that are loose. Also, I found a complete in-box Sega 32X cartridge, T-Mac. Again, this is a cartridge that I collected for the Ultimate Sega 32X review, and this game did come in handy for that. But what strikes me as to how similar this game is packaged compared to that Atari Jaguar game. I don't know if it was Sega taking notes from them, or Atari taking notes from Sega, but I guess either way it's not a good sign, as both of those systems did fail. Even down to the black and white manual. Astounding. And perhaps even more shocking is how similar both of those are to the Mattel and Television games that I found. Actually, this is the Sears Telegames version, but they were packaged very similar. Again, I definitely recommend getting the games with these overlays so that you can tell what the controller buttons are supposed to do, and it's nice that it comes with the instructions so that you can tell how to play the game. Mattel and Television games are not always as straightforward as you would think from a game system of that era. Then again, why didn't they think their system was confusing when they had to explain how to insert the game cartridge? The game manual is still monochrome, but it's not black and white, it's actually this red and white. No, that isn't black that's been faded, this is how it was originally printed, I believe. Oh, if only they were making replacement overlays still. I do have a couple that I'm missing. But anyway, on top of that, I got this Super Video Arcade triple action game. The overlays will give you a hint that they're mainly designed to use the controller buttons to choose which game you're going to choose, as there are, I think, 4 different games to choose from. I also got Lock-in Chase, which is actually an Intellivision branded game. As you can tell from the back, it is a Pac-Man clone type game, and I've heard it's pretty fun, so I'm looking forward to trying this one out. I also got Sea Battle, but what I didn't realize is that the Frog Bog overlay is also included with this. I guess that's a double score, because I think I got that game as well. And then I also got Space Armada, which is another one of those games that is very of the time period. Everything was either space or star related. And if you can't tell by the obvious artwork, it looks like this is supposed to be a clone of Space Invaders, but we'll see what it is when I actually play it. And here are all of my Intellivision finds together. And since this video is running a little long, I'm going to go ahead and cut to the chase and show you everything that I got here, including a bunch of complete in-box Sega Genesis titles, and even a Mega Drive title, as well as that Master System Missile Defense 3D complete in-box. I think perhaps my favorite out of this find was Tempest 2000 for the Atari Jaguar. That was its pack-in title, I believe, and it is one that I've been told is the best version of that game, so I'm looking forward to trying that one out when I start playing these games. Overall, this was not a bad game lot. I usually don't find this many titles, and I usually don't collect complete in-box titles, so I thought this would make a good video to kind of summarize everything that I found in this trip. Although it is now, I will also reiterate the point that this video is about a year old. Due to current measures in my state, I have not been able to make it to very many retro game stores around my area. Also, ever since about March of 2020, it's kind of been slim pickings in my area in terms of retro game collecting. It's not that this market has dried up, I think it's just kind of slowed down. And I don't know if that's because people are reluctant to go into stores that are selling used merchandise or what, but I haven't been able to find much lately, so I went back through the archives and decided to show a find that I have not shown before. If you did like this video, even though it's from a year ago, please give it a like and a thumbs up, and let me know if you'd like to see more, as I do have several other trips that I did in early 2020 that I have not shown yet, for one reason or another. So if you do like this content, let me know and I will definitely dig through my archives to see if I can find more footage from trips I have not shown yet. That said, that is going to wrap things up for this video. Again, if you like what you see, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. But again, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned because I have more content coming. That said, I will see you all in the next one. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.